I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Francesca Apostolou. Francesca is from Westchester County, New York. I don't know why I have a hard time pronouncing that, but I always have. She lives there with her husband and two children. Francesca, you've been a school teacher for 22 years. That's great. And you've been investing in real estate since 2002. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love it if you would kind of let the listeners kind of know a little bit about your background, you know, obviously as a teacher and then moving into real estate investing. Just give us a little bit of your story, if you would.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. I've been a teacher for 22 years. I'll be starting my 23rd year coming up actually tomorrow is our first day back. And I have been investing in real estate since 2002 with my husband, James. Our first, if you want to call it investment, was our single family home that we bought. We bought the ugly house on the block. And so we rehabbed it and created equity in the home. And so we were able to utilize our single family home to purchase a property, which became a rental property for us. But at first it was our vacation home in Florida. And then later on, it became a rental property. And from there on, we were able to create passive income from this rental property. So that's how we got started in real estate. Also, a little bit about myself. Before I even went to college for teaching, I got my real estate license as well. And I was doing some rentals during college, while I was in college. So I was in the rental division of one of my local brokerages in the area. So I've always had a hand in real estate. I've always loved it. And I finally got a proof of concept once we purchased our mistake in Florida, and it paid off. So we got to recognize what it was to have a single family home and leverage that home because equity does happen in real estate. So how we were able to leverage that to pay for our place in Florida.
Yeah. And I think it's a great strategy that is probably underutilized. I think people, a lot of people have a lot of equity in their home, especially if they've owned it for a long time and don't necessarily put that equity to work. It's kind of, I think people are, I don't know, maybe they think that I'm just going to keep paying down my mortgage and then someday when I retire, I can live off the house or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the theory is. And it's a theory I probably had at one time, but realizing that, you can use that equity to your advantage in the meantime to actually sort of build more income streams and to build more equity in other properties. So what sort of brought you to that realization? Like, I guess maybe as a realtor, you had some, exposure to that sort of thinking, but I feel like so many people don't think of that. So what kind of brought you around to thinking, hey, let's sort of make our house work for us?
Yeah. So what happened was when we purchased our property, it was back in 2007, and when in Florida. And so that property we got for about 6.5% when we bought that property. The mortgage rate was 6.5%. So this is a little backstory. So in order for us to create cash flow from that property, if we all know what happened in 2008, the mortgage crisis happened and things started to crash. And so with that, the mortgage rates went down. So that was the silver lining in all of this, because we were able to leverage our home to pay off the property in Florida and go from 6.5% to 3.5%. And at that point, that's when we decided, let's rent it. And it was cash flowing from there on out. So that's where we saw the power of real estate, was through equity happening. First of all, through buying the ugly house on the block, creating equity, paying off the loan as the years went on, and how equity did occur within those years, and how we were able to leverage our home to help us with this place we bought in Florida during the heights of the market in Florida. So,
yeah. Purchased during the height of the market, right before the market sort of
crashed.
tanked. Yeah. But I think that's a really good point, in the sense that, okay, you leveraged your house. Some people might think that that's scary, unwise, whatever, you know, what we were just saying, like, not a lot more people could do that and they don't. People might think that's a scary thing to do. You bought something at the height of the real estate, you know, sort of wind up, and then it crashed right after. And guess what? It still worked out for you.
It sure did.
Right? Like,
it sure did.
All of the bad, like the worst mortgage or the worst real estate crash in history basically happened to you, and you still were able to make it work with real estate. And that's a really, really strong illustration of the power of real estate, right? It's like, here you were hit with this, you know, potentially devastating thing, but you were able to actually make it work in your favor.
That's right. That's right. And that's a great point, because you know, everyone needs a place to live. And so, you know, you will always be, if you could make it cash flow. So let me just back up. We learned a lot of lessons from it. So it was actually something that I think in our life, in our what brought us to this point now, we learned so many lessons that, yes, you can take a bad situation and make it a good situation. And real estate is always going to be there. It's not going away. And people always need a place to live. And just as you could see during the crash, you know, the government came in and they had to save the mortgages in the banks. So what they do, they lowered interest rates, right? So there's always going to be something that's going to pull you through. You just have to be creative on finding that way to help you. So yeah, I do think that some people might think it's scary to leverage their home, but it was the right thing to do at that time, because the interest rate was so high that if we were able to lower it 3%, I mean, that made a huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah, I'm sure it did. Do you still own the house in Florida?
No, we just sold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, like a couple months ago.
Okay, so I guess that still sort of makes my point, in the sense that I'm sure that you made money on that house when you sold it. That it had increased, and despite going through this crash, you just held on, and you generated cash flow throughout, and then you were able to sell it with more equity and you know, sort of value at that point. I'm assuming it's just, again, all of these are really good lessons for people about, essentially, you know, sort of the safety of real estate. That it's like, people think it's scary and risky and all of that, and it's like, you ended up with 2 homes that had equity, and one of which is cash flowing, one of which you're living in, and it's kind of like, there's no bad there. And you went through you went through a mortgage crisis, you went through a pandemic. I mean, you managed to kind of go through all that stuff, and still, you know, sort of the real estate carries you through, right? Because you still have, you know, it's not like, I don't always know what people's fears are, but it's not like, sure, natural disasters happen, but like, your house isn't likely to just disappear.
That's right.
Right. You buy real estate, it's not just going to go away. Right. And even if that happens, you have insurance. Right. So it's all about sort of being prepared and planning, and as you mentioned, you know, sort of being creative. I think I heard you use the word your mistake on the house in Florida. Why do you say that?
Well, I think because I don't know if it was. I mean, I think a lot of people didn't recognize or see what was going to happen the following year, because a lot of people were backing out,
Yep.
and so I don't think we saw it, and a lot of people didn't see it. So we were blindsided. So I don't know if it was a mistake, but it was definitely a lesson. It
Right.
was a lesson, and so we took away a lot of lessons from it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I'm sure at the time, probably initially it felt like a mistake. You're like, oh, we
Mhm.
just here we
Yeah.
just bought this extra house and now the market crashed. But again, it just, you made the most of it. You did something smart, and then sort of turned it into a positive. So I think that's really key, and a really great lesson for other people thinking about getting into real estate. It's like there's so many different ways to become involved in investing in real estate, whether that's buying a second home and using it as an Airbnb as well as your vacation house, or whatever. It doesn't matter, because virtually all the strategies work as long as you do them sort of smartly.
That's right.
And so since then, what have you done in terms of real estate after getting this house in Florida? Have you sort of continued to build your portfolio? What are you guys doing to kind of continue to ride that wave?
Yeah. So the last couple of years, we've been educating ourselves on multifamily investing. So, like you said, you really need to have the knowledge. So, at the time, we were just buying a single family place to vacation. So that was just something you did residential. That wasn't something that you kind of thought about or educated yourself on. But now with multifamily, we decided we were going to take the commercial route and educate ourselves on that. So that's what we have been doing. And so the last year, we have closed on a JV property in North Carolina, which is a 34 unit. And we LP'd in some deals, and also GP'd in another deal. So we have our hand in different things. It's just like we got into the LP position to see what it was like to be on the passive side. We got in the GP position to see what it's like on the active side, and also some JV as well to be on the active side. So we both know what it's to be a passive investor and an active investor. So that's what we've been up to, and we're continuing to look for more properties, and hopefully, more will come down the pike.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. So that's, I mean, again, speaking to that sort of, there are so many different ways you can be involved in real estate, right? So you went from sort of that residential side, you started to think about multifamily, commercial real estate, and sort of trying the different ways as a limited partner, as a general partner, and seeing. And I don't know, you could tell me if you disagree, but I feel like that sort of joint venture type of thing is almost like a combination of the two, whereas you have a little bit of, I feel like with a lot of joint ventures, you can be as active as you want to be, depending on who your other partners are, right? So some people might want to do the management side of it. Some people might want, to kind of just see what's happening. So, because I've done the same thing, been involved in some joint ventures, and usually someone is still maybe driving the bus, like
Right.
in a syndication, but it's not quite as complicated, not quite as many people usually.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
Have you figured out what you like best yet? Have you are you still trying
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So I mean, I like being passive. I do. It's great. Just getting mailbox money, or ACH money is what they call it, right into the bank. I mean, it's
Right.
nice, right? Not having to worry about anything and just doing it that way. But I also like being active, because I want to be able to create generational wealth and a legacy for my family as well. So I do like the active part also. The LP part definitely gave me a education too, to learn about what it is to be a passive investor, and it gave me a proof of concept of what that whole which I've never knew before, what a syndication is, and the proof of concept of a syndication, when you're with the right group and the right sponsor.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's a great point. It makes a big difference if you're your experience in those different roles will be, could be drastically different based on sort of who you partner with. So that's a really great point, that that's as big a part of the education as just kind of learning what syndication is, right? Sort of figuring out, okay, the actual process, it's not, there's a lot of steps and components to it, but as a process, it's not that hard to understand, right? It's not, you're not doing something that it's not complex physics or anything. It's like, this is how it works. There's sort of a recipe to it. And then, but there's a bad chef can mess up the recipe, I guess, is probably the best way.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's just, if you have someone who's sort of in charge that isn't managing it well, then even a good deal could potentially go bad. And if you have a good manager, maybe a mediocre deal goes well. So it definitely, there are some nuances, I think, that impact it. So that's really cool that, sort of, you kind of dipped into each different component and figured out, what, well, maybe you're still figuring out what you like. And then maybe talk a little bit about, kind of, there are pros and cons to each, right? So for someone listening that maybe doesn't really understand the difference between limited partner and general partner, kind of what would you tell them to help describe that?
So a limited partner, you are basically investing with a sponsor who has a deal. They've done all the work. They found the deal. They went through the mortgage process, and you're basically investing with this person for a return on your investment. So it could be, a 7% preferred return, an 8% preferred return on your investment. But with that, you're not doing anything. You have to do nothing. I mean, it's just basically, it depends on how the deal is structured. It could be monthly cash flow that you're getting, or it could be quarterly. So it all depends. In our case, it's monthly, so it's nice because you're able to say, okay, I'm going to use it for this. So it's that, let your assets pay for your liabilities type of thing. And so it's great. It's great to know that that's coming in every month. But even when it's quarterly, it's fine too. You could figure that out quarterly. So that's part of the limited part. You do nothing, but they say collect mailbox money, and it's true. So I have proof of concept of that. And then there's the active part where you're on the manager's calls. You're trying to figure things out with your partners. You're maybe calling vendors to find out cheaper prices, or you're managing the manager to see if they're giving you the right prices. You're calling vendors to find out what the prices are in the area. So there's a lot more active going on. It takes up more time. And someone that maybe has a career that they don't have enough time for it, it takes up time. So if you're like real estate, the limited partner part is great. But if you want to get your hands dirty and deal with managers, or maybe even doing it yourself, where you're managing yourself and dealing with tenants and toilets, then you could do that as well. So that's the difference. It's like being hands-on versus being hands-off.
Yeah. So. Yeah. That's a really good description. The limited partners, your one job is to essentially do your due diligence on the sponsor, really, right? The deal and whoever's going to be managing the deal. When it comes to the other side, as a general partner, you probably more than one person, you'll each have some roles in terms of managing that asset. So yeah, that was a good sort of rundown. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Are you focused, I know you said Southeast, are you sort of sticking in that area?
Yeah, we'd like to be in the Southeast for our active investing. We're in North Carolina right now, so we'd like to stick within the Carolinas. We were looking also in Huntsville, Alabama. So if something does come up there, we do love that market as well. But if we could expand in the Carolinas at this point, we'd love that. Yeah. So that's where we're really focusing and honing in on, since we have the one property there. We're honing in on that area.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Really get to know your market and become an expert in that area. So it makes total sense. Well, that's great. Francesca, there are sort of a handful of questions that I like to ask everybody. So maybe we can switch gears a little bit and talk about those. I think that'll be fun conversation. So the first is really just in relation to the name of the podcast. It's Know Your Why. So can you tell us what's your why? What drives you in furthering your success?
Yeah, so my why is to empower my children and others on financial education and financial freedom. So when I say financial freedom, I come from a family that is immigrants from Italy, and so when my parents came here, they came here with a dream, and they came here and they worked really hard, and they worked hard not just with one job; they had multiple jobs. So they understood that they needed multiple streams of income, and but it was like they were exchanging their time for money. So I didn't really see them as much because they were working so much. And so, in order to understand financial freedom, it's like what Robert Kiyosaki says in his book, which was the pivoting moment for me. How can you make your assets pay for your liabilities? So, if I could teach and empower my children that you don't have to just rely on your one job or work multiple jobs in order to be financially free. How can you work a job and take your hard-earned money and create it and put it into an asset that will give you um, uh, dividends and help you pay for your liabilities? So I think that was a mindset shift for me. It was ingrained in me to do that, to work two jobs, and I did, and my husband did. And so because that's what I was taught, but it's my why to be able to teach my children that you don't necessarily have to give up your time for money. You can work for money and let it work for you. And so that's my why, is to help them and to help generations to come to recognize that this is another way you can pay for your liabilities and not have to work multiple jobs to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree 100%. And that's a big part of it for me too, is, teaching my kids. It's just stuff that we don't learn. It's just stuff, this isn't in schools. It's not even, you have to specifically seek it out in your education. If you want to get anything, maybe in college, you can take classes, but it's really just not out there to teach young people how to use these strategies to their advantage. And it's like, like you were saying, like you grew up sort of, your parents taught you, they instilled in you a great work ethic. I did the same. It was like, oh, I need a little more money. Okay, I'll work more jobs. Like, it was that was always the way. It's like, I need to pay for this thing. I'll get another job. I'll do something on the side, whatever it is. And really, what I think the way to teach kids is like, figure out a way to make your money work those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have it be you. Have it be your money. You're going to have to work some, right? Unless you're handed a giant pile of money, like, you're going to have to work some, but figure out a way to make your money continue to do those other jobs to create passive income. And so it's kind of like, and I always talk about this, sort of power of time that children and young people have, that it sort of goes wasted if you don't know.
Right. That's right.
Right. And it's like, if I knew, I don't know, like, people, you do dumb things when you're young, but in theory, like, if okay, if I do things the right way from 20 to 30,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. You'll be good after that. You could literally be set for life at that point if you do smart things, for
Right.
5 or 10 years when you're young, because just the power of compounding over time is like incredibly powerful. So yeah, this is something that I love that answer, because it's something that I sort of think about all the time. And it's like, I'm sure probably my kids are going to once they're old enough for me to start really talking about it, they're going to get annoyed, but I'm going to be like, you need to figure this out now because I figured it out way too late in life. So no, that's great, and I think will be super empowering to your children, and any other young people that can be impacted.
Oh, for sure. And it's never too late, ever.
Right. Yeah. This is not to say like, oh, if you're over a certain age, don't start.
Right.
Start, but it's kind of like what's that? The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now.
That's
Same
right.
thing with investing in real estate is just I'm excited about the opportunities for young people, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it now, right? Like it's just, and it doesn't mean that I don't think other people my age should do it now. It's just
it's what you feel. It's what you're feeling, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm excited about it because I see that they can harness that power at an earlier age where I sometimes feel like I'm a little bit playing catch up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's like, I say, life's good. I'm not, I don't want anyone to think that I'm complaining about how our life is. I'm just saying, like, in terms of having control over your time and
Mm-hmm.
not trading time for money, if you start thinking about that early, it will be hugely impactful, as you get a little bit older, so that, when you do have kids, you miss nothing.
That's right.
Right. You miss
That's right.
nothing.
That's a
You miss
great
nothing.
point.
You
Yes.
never have to say, oh, mommy or daddy's got to work today, I can't come to your game or whatever. And it's like my kids are young, and that's why I feel so strongly about it now, and why I feel like I'm in a bit of catch-up mode, because I'm like, okay, my oldest is only 2.5, but like in another 2 or 3 years he's going to be doing things like activities, and I'm not missing them.
That's
Like
right.
I am not, and I have worked a lot in life and missed a lot of other family things
Mm-hmm.
that, sort of regrettably, had I known better, maybe didn't have to be that way as frequent. So I just won't, I'm not going to let that cycle continue. And that's why I get passionate about it when I think about it in like children and young adults, that it's like, you just have to make a few little tweaks, and time's going to be your best friend. So yeah, I'm very excited about that and your answer. Sorry, I'm
It's okay. Yeah.
with that, but all right. So moving on. Next question: Can you tell us something about yourself that isn't common knowledge, like a hobby, something, a special skill, anything that you would feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that people don't know about me. I mean, they know that I'm a teacher. They know that they're listening to this podcast. I like real estate. Back when I was in high school, I went to a trade and technical high school, and at the high school, you were able to get your hair license. So I did. I think I got every license out there. I mean, I got, so they said, it's free. You could get your license. I said, okay, great. So I did. I got my hairdresser's license. So so I have that as well. I don't practice, but I do have it, and I keep it current,
Yeah,
just in case.
that's funny.
But I think I need a little practice. But yeah.
That's great. I think
Yeah.
at least one, if not, I have a lot of teachers in my family, like 4 of my aunts, I think, are teachers. Some of them have moved up to the principal level and things like that. But also, I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 of them got their hairdresser license and used that as like a side hustle, because obviously are underpaid. So it's something that's funny, that parallel there.
Yeah.
How can people reach out to you if they hear your story here and they're interested and they want to chat? What's the best way to touch base?
Yeah, they can reach me on our website, Niveau, Niveau partners.com. On the website, they can actually sign up for a free due diligence on a limited partner questionnaire, due diligence on a sponsor with a limited partner questionnaire. So that would, it helps them research a market, it helps them research a sponsor. So there's some great information there for multifamily. They can also find me. I'm on the different social media threads. I'm on LinkedIn, Francesca Apostolou, or on Instagram, Nauvoo Properties.
Okay.
So,
And we'll put all that in the show notes so people listening can can find you. So that'll be, I'm sure they'll be happy to connect. Final question: what piece of advice would you give to someone that's maybe just a few years behind you in their journey into real estate investing? What would you tell someone after they hear your story, as far as inspiration or advice or anything like that?
Yeah, I really think it's important though, to knowledge is power, right? And it's really important to educate yourself on different ways of investing in real estate. So I think that is so important. And if you are looking to read a book about it, I mean, the first book that I ever read that changed my mind was Rich Dad Poor Dad. But there's other great books that, like what I said about having financial freedom, there's an amazing book called The Honeybee that tells you about multiple streams of income. And that's what will create financial freedom for you. So definitely educate yourself. It becomes a mindset too. So, some mindset books like, which one is it from what's his name? The Millionaire Mindset. That's another great book. So, I mean, just educate yourself. I mean, on multifamily, that could really get your juices flowing, but also get you into a place of wanting to learn more and giving you, the knowledge to do so and the knowledge to make good choices.
Yeah. It makes sense that a teacher would suggest education for getting started in real estate. I think that makes total sense. And all those books are great books. I think that a lot of people point to Rich Dad Poor Dad as that sort of pivotal book that they read, and it kind of changes their thinking about everything. This is probably blasphemy to say it. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it wasn't the one that I thought it was a great book. And I want to go back and read it again because everybody talks, but there's been some others to me that were just maybe a little, I think I like the technical ones maybe a little bit better, but like in the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, Cash Flow Quadrant, I think is a good one for people. Like reading those two together is a really, I think, putting them together, probably to me, that's probably what hits me more is like, okay, Rich Dad Poor Dad, you're like, okay, good, this the poor dad isn't doing things right, the rich dad is doing things right, but like, how do I then put that into practice? And I feel like Cash Flow Quadrant,
yes,
and other books like break that down for you. So I think all of them are good. There's like you said, there's lots of mindset books, there's so many. The point is the education is out there and easy to access, right? There's the books, there's podcasts, there's Bigger Pockets website, there's your website. I mean, there's just like, there's so much out there that if once you start looking, it's very easy to sort of go down that rabbit hole and find probably an overwhelming amount of information, but then start reaching out to people and seeing what you can learn from them. So
absolutely.
Really great. I think everything you said is spot on, and like I said, I feel like we sort of have parallel lives a little bit. So really cool. Francesca, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great, and I appreciate your time and sort of all of your insight that you've shared today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. All right, everyone, we will say goodbye. Have a good day.